Hello and welcome to the Relaunch Love Flick Show. I'm your host, Hilary Decesare. We created the Love Flick Show to share secrets from ladies who have relaunched themselves in life, business, and love. This is for the busy, successful woman who wants to know what she must know, but doesn't have the time to go figure it out. I will be interviewing daily experts that are top in the industry. And each day in your inbox, we're going to bring you content not to be missed and key tips to get you on your path to relaunching fast. The Love Flick Show is a binge style 2-week expert series. Each show is informative and actionable. Our philosophy at Relaunch Love is if you can't use it right away, then it's useless. So start using the great tips and advice now. So today I'm excited to introduce Danna Pycher, a friend of mine now and an expert in international, she's a motivational speaker, she's a hypnotherapist and an author. She specializes in healing trauma and disease and the correlation between the two. Through her speaking, she is known to connect with her audience in an intimate way, leaving lasting effects. Ultimately, she teaches how to really listen to your inner guidance, to flow more effectively through life. Sounds pretty powerful. She has been featured as a TEDx speaker. She's been in the Sun Sentinel. She's been in Bride Magazine and more. I had the pleasure of meeting her through actually the TED Talk. And Danna, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. It is so exciting to be talking to you and introducing you to everybody if they haven't already heard about you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, as I said, I first got acquainted with you when I heard about your TED Talk, which was Healing Illness with the Subconscious Mind. And I was really looking at it for help with my daughters and my family. And as I got to know you and as I started to talk to you, I thought, you know what? I want to do this. I want to go through this with you. I want to try hypnosis for me to help me bring out truly the best and where am I going and what am I doing and any of my blockers. And you and I've been working for about 6 months together and it's truly life-changing. So again, thank you for everything you've done for myself, for people I've brought to you. I mean, it's been really a great journey with you. So why don't you share a little bit more about your story specifically?
Okay, well, thank you so much. Again, I'm super, super happy to be here connecting with you and sharing. This work is something that I never thought I would end up doing. It is something I happened upon by necessity. And now I'm a huge advocate more and more and more that everyone everywhere should know little bits and tips and tricks themselves of how to process their own emotions. Because lately we're just so overstimulated by life that if we had these extra tools ourselves, we could just really maximize our lives. So I got to this work, hypnosis. I never thought I'd be a hypnotist, by having an experience which needed deep, deep healing. I had post-traumatic stress after a car accident where I nearly lost my life. I was left hanging upside down at the side of the road for about 45 minutes until firefighters came to cut me out. As a result, I was, physically injured gravely, and the mental injuries were actually the more dramatic experience. So I came across this work because I knew I was different. I started seeing a therapist, and before my accident, I was a very confident, still even then, like this trailblazing woman. I didn't really feel as if there was anything that could stop me. And after my accident, it was the complete opposite. I needed help in all forms to go to the bathroom, like everything, okay? So it took a big hit to my...
Different. We're talking majorly different. Yeah.
Major. And a difference in my personality. And so essentially, I knew I needed help. And a lot of doctors were saying I needed to be on very high level antidepressants, and this is my new normal, and accept it, and this is what I got served with. And I couldn't really hear it because I knew like something happened to me. So something shifted. So I didn't know how and what and where to go about it, but I knew something happened. So I saw a therapist, and she was very kind to me, and I liked her, but I still felt the same, traumatized. And after it was about 6 months, I decided to leave, and I didn't really know where I was going, but I had an opportune moment of meeting a woman who survived cancer. And she told me she would not be alive today were it not for this specific trauma therapist she went to. So I signed up, and I said, this is me. I need this. Whoever this woman is, I'm there. And I went, and within the first session, she told me, her philosophy about how the mind works and all this stuff. And she told me that she specializes in this thing called hypnosis. So at the time, I wanted nothing to do with it. Zero, don't touch me. That's weird. Not happening. And then after, a number of sessions being with her, I really liked her, and she brought it up again, and we decided to go for it. And within the first session, I left with a shift. I left feeling lighter. One session, yeah.
I get it. That one session is remarkable. But, it's interesting, your comment about hypnosis and how it's viewed, and, hey, I'm not doing that. How did you even feel about hypnosis? I feel the same way right now. There's a lot of talk about hypnosis. There's talk about meditation. Can you help us understand what is the difference between the two, and why hypnosis over meditation?
Great question. So hypnosis, there's a ton of miseducation. That's another one of my biggest advocacies, is that people have no idea what it is. And there's this skepticism, which is perfectly healthy and normal because it has a stigma. And really all it is, and I'll tell you the difference also between hypnosis and meditation. Hypnosis is one of the most fascinating processes. It's a way to access the subconscious mind. So if there is some sort of shock that happens in life that creates a shutdown of the nervous system, or a shutdown of behavior, or creates an addictive pattern, it's because we're coping with something. So that material, all of that stuff that we need to clear up, if we knew how to do it consciously, we would do it. If we could talk out our alcoholism, it would happen. But there's these things that have happened to us over life that have created shock on the system. And that shock resides in our memories. It's emotional charge that just lives in our memories. So it's basically like upgrading the software of a computer. Hypnosis, through an interesting process, the use of imagination, we go into different memories, and there's a number of different processes within hypnosis, but hypnosis in and of itself is a state of relaxation. And while you're in that state of relaxation, depending on the objective, generally speaking, the objective is to neutralize the emotional patterns and interrupt the thought processes for a healthier life experience.
So I like what you said, upgrade this, it's a computer system. And we all can understand that when you're trying to reboot your computer, right? And you have to turn it off to get it started up again. But what you're saying is that there's something still there. So just because you turn it off doesn't mean you start it up and it's vanished.
Yeah.
Okay. So then that's hypnosis, but I'm still unclear of what the difference would be from the meditation perspective. And a lot of people are meditating these days.
Yeah. So here's the difference. So I'm a big fan of meditation. I actually started myself about a year ago, and I see the merits in it wholeheartedly. It's a different objective, because hypnosis in and of itself is the meditative state. And when you're in that meditative state, you have a goal. So I oftentimes say hypnosis is like a goal-oriented meditation. Meaning I'm not just going to, close my eyes for 20 minutes and kind of clear my thoughts, create, better space. And also, just to be honest, if you have anxiety beyond belief, you can try to meditate and it's just not going to happen. So unless there's a bit of cleanup, you know, on the back files, that there's enough bandwidth to sit for 20 minutes.
Okay, so this is what I found.
Yeah.
I found that I was having a tough time meditating because that just all the chatter and all the things, and then I would get into my own head and I'd go down the path and I would try to let the thoughts pass and all that. But when I started working with you, it's almost like hypnosis, like you said, then makes meditation that much better. And completely, I found that myself. Okay.
And, yeah, go ahead.
So now take us down. We've got, you know, women that are trying to relaunch themselves, whether it's after divorce, you've got, you know, loss, or maybe you haven't, you know, been able to really get yourself to where you want to be in life, you know, after this, you know, 45 plus age. What do you suggest to them? What can they do to kind of embrace this hypnosis as a true path to get them on their way?
So I'll start with this. Everything is a construct of our perception and our beliefs. Ultimately, we create our realities. Okay, if you believe that or not, I'm believing it more and more and more. Okay, so for example, about a couple weeks ago, I gave a workshop called Healing Broken Hearts. And someone I knew attended and basically said to me, how did you feel about doing that? I said, perfect, fine, this is what I do, you know? And she's like, no. You never work about love. Love is not something you do, you know? And it's interesting because it's never anything I touch so much, but what I'm doing more and more lately is recognizing that also, so my specialty is trauma and disease. That being said, when we go into these memories and there's neglect, there's a lack of basic needs being met, we start developing these core beliefs of, I'm not important, I'm not worthy, I'm invisible, I'm too much, whatever it is. You know, that, and the interesting part of this is all those beliefs, you wouldn't even say consciously, I'm not important. It's not like something you're saying to people, I'm not important, therefore X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. It's you know, the picture of the glacier that has like the little bit and then the massive thing. That's the subconscious. Iceberg. So if underneath the surface, there's this belief that is creating the construct of your behavior, even subconsciously, and I don't want to scare anyone by saying this because we're all good, we're all fine, but when you're able to get into that belief, lift it, release it, all of a sudden everything starts changing.
Well, Danna, what you're saying resonates with me because what happened when we started to work is that, you know, I came into it thinking, you know, yeah, you know, on the surface, I'm doing okay right now. I'm good. I'm moving through life and things are happening. But then as we were talking, when I was going through some of the things you were saying, yes, but that's actually holding you back. I didn't even realize some of these things were, like you said, the iceberg below the surface. Mm-hmm. And so once we started to dig into that and you started to ask me my stories around them, okay, I'm going to let you keep going, but it was fabulous. It was so interesting. And like you said, subconsciously, I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no idea that these things would come up, and I felt like that anxiety would start to, and I didn't know why. I'm like, I had no idea why this is happening.
And that's the beauty of it. It's so interesting as well. And also I'd like to mention that the beauty of this work is the moment it's done, it's done. You evolve. You shift into the new. It's not like therapy of like 10 years analyzing your parents and how they didn't behave a certain way. And, you know, this went wrong and that went wrong. And then you're lost. You know, this is a little bit of a discovery process. And then we come to a conclusion. What do we want to work on? And let's say there's a theme of I'm invisible. Okay. So we go and there's certain thought patterns that were created by these memories that happen. Let's say you got yelled at as a kid. So it's safer for you to just kind of shrink, pull back, shut down, because that's the subconscious mind protecting you. And it's a positive thing. So the subconscious mind does everything for the positive. So that being said, if you get back into that core belief and you release it in the moment, not even just insight, it's not just, wow, I understand this. It's gone. It's officially discovered and released.
Which happened, which is really crazy. And you also brought out, which I found was the strangest part of being, under in this state, as you called it. And really, so everyone knows, you're not actually like in the movies, the way they describe being hypnotized. You're not walking around like a zombie. She's not telling you to do things that, you never would have done in real life. That's not the way it is. But I found when you hit on something that was a belief of mine and you tried to just help me understand where I got it, and you said, lean into the emotion. How are you feeling? And if, let's say I said, I feel really sad about it. And then you said, well, how, intensify that sadness. And I'll never forget when I was just, tearing up, like getting a little, misty in the eyes when we first started talking about it. And then all of a sudden you're like, multiply it by 10. And I just went, whew. And then you said, now stop. And you're now feeling lighter. And it was like, boom, I stopped. I mean, the tears were like flooding and then whoop, they were just done. And then afterwards you just feel this relief. It's incredible. So if women are feeling right now, perhaps that they are not able to truly move forward in their life, in their love life, because of something that's happened. Let's say it was a bad divorce, or perhaps you're just feeling like, is it ever going to happen to me? Am I ever going to find love? Or you're terribly unhappy with your current job and you want to go do something else. How do you start the process with women?
Beautiful. So first thing I always like to say is that generally when people have these huge transitions or they've been through a lot in life, the first thing I always mention is take credit for what you've been through, that you're surviving, and to be kind about it, because oftentimes these things are way more difficult than we let ourselves even give credit to. So that's the first thing, of really just honoring yourself and everything you've been through, and that you're okay. You're human. We all go through weird stuff. It's part of being human. Right. And then we begin layer by layer. What's the most priority that's happening right now? Because a lot of what I like to do is I like to work through the major emotions that are potentially keeping things stagnant. So once the baseline is lifted, let's say you're not feeling so anxious anymore, you're not feeling so drained, you're not feeling so depressed, whatever it is, let's say your baseline is low and it's been low for a while, just lifting that, breathing fresh air with that baseline a little bit, up.
It's impactful.
It's huge. It's so empowering. It's empowering to gain your power back. And that's number one. So empowerment is the first thing, because you should feel good despite whatever happens to you. And then we go into the specifics of your individual story. So let's say it was a divorce or something, and that is still haunting you, and you can't seem to put it aside. And that happens all the time, of course. There's people I've worked with that got divorced 10 years ago, and it feels like a scar, There's other people that get divorced 2 months later. It's like, okay, hanging out. So it's all about how it's affected you, and all of it's okay. If you're grieving still, okay, this is your process. So with that being said, once you get to something of a protocol like this, we speed up the process of, if it is grieving, like what you said about the crying, your subconscious mind had a little bit of tears in the back. And just by touching it, allowing it to happen in the safety and the confines of our session together, this sacred space, gone.
It is a wow.
Yeah. So then we laser focus on the specifics of, are you still having confidence issues? What's your, are you stuck in any type of relationship pattern? Do you have fears of someone cheating on you? Whatever it is. And little by little, it's just about a little bit more empowerment. So you're on your feet, you feel solid, and your inner world is solid enough that whatever happens externally doesn't really matter so much, and then you can just move forward with a strong inner composition of, I'm good, I'm okay, and actually I'm pretty great, and things should be good for me.
So do you have, we always like to give the listeners something that they can start to work on right away. What would you suggest? How can they start to embrace hypnosis in the comforts of their own home right now?
So we can do a little exercise together that will, I guess, prove the idea of shrinking and neutralizing feelings. And you can do it for 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be this long, extended process, but what happens is you'll see that by working with the dimensions of, so again, for the brain, it has pictures. So memories are file folders of pictures upon emotions, upon interwoven whatever's going on. So they have little dimensions. Some emotional instances can feel as if they're as big as the entire room. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the brain perceives it as overwhelming. Mm-hmm. But the breakfast you ate this morning, which you eat breakfast every single day, you eat lunch, you eat dinner, this is something that should be overwhelming you because you do it so often, but it's so mundane, it takes up no space in the brain. It's breakfast. So why can't this one thing once or even a few times that happened 16 years ago be like breakfast? Why is it not just like, okay, breakfast? Neutral. So we could do a little exercise that you can do at home, whenever you feel the need. It's pretty intuitive and self-explanatory. And it just shows you that when you play with the dimensions, it can be like, a little lighter.
Okay, so is this something that if they're driving, they should be doing right now, they can do it later? Or can they still? Okay.
They can do it later. They can obviously listen because we're not going to do any like deep hypnosis or anything like that. But yeah.
Okay.
It requires the imagination. So if you pick a memory, any memory, let's just make it something middle ground, okay? Something that just feels, let's say, it could even be around a heartbreak from someone you knew when you're 15.
Okay.
Okay, so you can even close your eyes. So you just pick that memory up. You see how big it is. Is it filling the room? Like as if it's a picture frame. Is it distant from you? Is it nearby? What's the scope of the dimension of what you're looking at? Then you're going to see, is it black and white? Is it in color? Is there sound? Is there movement? How vivid is this experience for you? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to just push the frame more distant. So, and if there's emotions, if you actually still in this moment have emotions towards it, notice how things change. So we're just going to, you're going to pick this memory, you're going to push it away. It's going to become further away from you, creating space. And now let's just shrink it by half. Already you could even potentially start feeling that it's a little bit more detached. If it's in color, make it black and white. If it's moving, make it still. And then what I like for you to do is I'd like for you to, whatever emotion you have inside, if it's sadness, if it's grief, and it doesn't have to be perfect now, you can take more time and do it later. But you're just going to feel as if there's this, vacuum or this attachment from your heart, or wherever that emotion lies, and just allow it to be suctioned out of you and put into that memory. So now you're just basically allowing the memory to hold the emotion, and it can just leave your body. So just go ahead and do that now. Feel as if you can feel as if it has a color, and you're just really channeling it into that further away picture. Take a minute and do that now. You might yawn, you might move, because things are actually changing in your neurology as this is released. I'm actually doing it myself. Beautiful. So as best you can, you just want to place the emotion there, and then shrink the picture even further. Shrink it, shrink it, shrink it, shrink it, shrink it. That's right. And then see if it's sailing on this little boat. It's like this little stamp, and it's just like sailing away into the distance. Allow that to happen. And even if it's not perfect right now, that's also okay. And then when that's done, you can take a deep breath in and out. And then you can open your eyes whenever you're ready. Just take your time whenever they feel ready.
I love that. And you know what I always find is that there's always some element where I have these crazy, I love how you say frame. Like, cause then I think of it's like almost like a little bit of a movie set. And so I turned into like Ghostbusters, and I'm like taking it in. I mean, it's interesting how we all come up with different ways that we do this.
Yeah.
But then you can really see how you make that huge thing that matters. And I picked a big one. And make it tiny, make it go. I mean, it's so interesting how you do that.
Yeah, it's beautiful work. It's beautiful. And if everyone knew even just that technique, let's say something happened today that bothered you. Okay, it's annoying, irritating, frustrating, you know, even if I thought to do it more often, because I forget these things too, you know, it would be great.
Yeah. So Danna, that's interesting. So when we've had a bad day, or when we've seen an ex, or when we have something happen that really isn't a good thing, and we don't want it to be permanently lodged in our subconscious, how fast do we need to do this exercise? How fast do we need to like let it go so that it doesn't permanently become a groove in our subconscious?
That's super interesting. I think the faster the better, but even if it does pass time, your brain, there's so much more research now about the brain is neuroplastic. It's just flexible. It moves. It creates new grooves. And this work actually creates new grooves. It literally biologically shifts the neurology of your brain. It's through imagination. It's through you and your own creativity. I'll tell you what, there's a woman I was working with who was going through a divorce. And she was going through the bad parts of the legal proceedings and just no fun. So I would work with her, and I would tell her every time before she would go into one of these meetings, we would charge her energy up, like as if there's a dial of energy in her brain. We would just charge it up to feel like good.
Yeah.
So why go, you don't have to, just because something is miserable in life, you don't have to go in miserable. If you're going through the worst of worst, you can also pick your emotional state, and that can also kind of allow contrast in your experience.
You can really do this before a situation too, to get yourself into that the right state. So as you said, you know, you kind of come in with your best self.
Yeah.
I love that. So unfortunately, we could really talk for hours and hours, and we have. But I understand that you have a free gift for everybody, and you have this peace of mind hypnosis that we're going to have it right below this, and they can download it so that they can listen to it. And it's my understanding that you want them to listen every day for a week.
Yeah.
And then that naturally helps change the subconscious.
The stress patterns. So ultimately, I mean, all of us have different things we're working through, but when it comes to so many issues, the fight or flight response is ultimately the culprit behind so many things. So if even just that piece can be a little bit more quiet, And the idea is that it gets a lot more quiet. And the more repetition, the better. If you want to do it for a month, and it's yours to keep forever. So whenever it happens, and it is hypnosis. So you're going to be processing things and stuff like that. And yeah, it's
And then, Danna, what else are you working on right now that you can share, just so that if people want to get in contact with you, follow up, maybe do a session with you, what else are you doing these days?
So I'm always innovating. And trying to, because my biggest issue lately is my time, and not actually being able to work with every single person individually. So this happened about a year ago where I had to start getting creative, and how do I do one-to-many? So that's what I'm playing with lately. I have courses. There's currently right now 2 month-long transformational courses. One is for emotional detox, stress, anger, anxiety, and depression. And the other one is for emotional eating, sugar addiction, emotional eating, portion control, and healthy habits. I'm in the midst of developing autoimmune relief. That's the newest course, because most of the people I work with, many women, unfortunately, and that's a whole other story for a whole other time, with autoimmune issues. And I have a membership that's just starting, where if people can't work with me one-on-one, it can be a call-in. It's about 45 minutes every other Sunday, and people can come in and get relief, basically like a Zoom call.
Terrific. That's awesome. I didn't even know you were doing that. So kudos to you. That's every other Sunday. And they can find this information. We'll have a link for sure, but it's dannapycher.com. And all of this information is there, and they can, sign up and decide, what they'd like to do as the next step. Well, Danna, thank you so much for being here. I found it incredibly, relaxing as well. I love continuing to do work with you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the tips that you gave us. And I do look forward to talking to you again on one of these calls. And so for now, I'm going to say we're signing off, and we want to say live now, love now. We look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow for 2 more experts sharing their main pieces of those secrets that you don't want to miss. Take care.